All right, everyone, are y'all ready to get started with an amazing BP Leadership Luncheon? Yeah, little black eyed peas to get us started. I am so glad to see y'all here. It's great to see so many familiar faces, but I am curious if this is your first time to BP Leadership. Can you raise your hand for me? Awesome. Thank y'all. Thank y'all. I was talking to my husband this morning. I look forward to this every month. It's just kind of a new month, a new lesson. It makes my mindset move forward to positivity. And hearing a leadership lesson from Bill it sticks with you. And so I'm so glad to see familiar faces. For our new guests, I hope when you see today, this will be something that you make a goal for yourself to get out of the office, go away from your normal routine, and make this a routine for yourself each month. It's so important to invest in yourself. I want to thank National Audio Visual. They make us sound and look good. Let's give them a round of applause. And you can't go wrong with Chick-fil-A lunch, so I hope you're enjoying that and eating some more chicken. And then on your tables, there is a QR code. And I know for my guests that are here each month, you hear me mention this, but for my new guests, if you pretend you're taking a picture, a link will pop up, and you can actually take notes on today's lesson. What I love about it is at the very end, I email it to myself, I print it off, I have a little file I keep at work, and it's so great to reference it. I also try to think of 3 people that I can email my notes to. So I'm going to challenge you to think about that because it's going to be a great lesson that you want to be able to capture. All right, well, again, 2 more things. There's a sign-in sheet that is on each table. We are just trying to do this for attendance purposes, so don't worry. We're not going to email you and call you nonstop. Just trying to see how many people are here. But I do need your help. I want to bring some energy, do a great round of applause for who you came to hear, not Haley, but Bill Purvis.
All right, I too want to welcome you and thank you for being here today. I can tell outside the weather is getting hotter, so I sure am glad that we're in a good, cool place and the air conditioning works. When I pray, sometimes I get through praying and I'll tell my wife, you know, there's certain people we never thank in the world, and one of them would be whoever invented air conditioning. And so I'm grateful for them and appreciate the difference they've made. All right, today I want to talk to you about a subject that all of us will need at some point, and this is how leaders handle problems. Speaking of air conditioning, I have a little office at my home, and the other day the air was out, so I had a problem. And I picked up the phone and I called the air conditioning repairman. He said, Bill, I'd love to be there, but my truck is at the shop, it broke down. Now he's got a problem. Then he said, and I would use my other truck, but my employer has it, and he's over at the doctor's office having to get something taken care of. So he's got a problem. So I thought in one phone call, in one moment, I got an air conditioning problem, he's got a mechanical problem, and his coworker has a health problem, and we hadn't even got anywhere yet. Here's what I know. There's an old saying that says, I got problems, you got problems, all God's children have problems. We're all going to have one. Some people, when they have a problem, they don't know how to face it. Some people, when they have a problem, they make a mountain out of a molehill. Some people have problems and you'd never know it. They go through life, and the more you begin to talk to them, you figure out they've got so many problems, but they never complained. I had a friend one time that we were driving down the road, and he wanted me to stop, and he went to a beekeeper. And we went in, and he stuck his hand in the bees and got them to all shake it up, and the bees stung him. I did not know. I said, Harry, I didn't know you had a problem. He said, yeah, I've got arthritis, and I go there, and that's one of the best treatments I get is to get stung by the bees. It's better than any medication you'll take. Okay. And then I said, well, Harry, you've never complained about it. And he's a dry guy. He says, well, Bill, I just always figured that arthritis is better than rigor mortis. So I guess it all depends on how you look at it. So here's what I want to help you today with is learning about problems. I want to use a favorite Bible character in a story that all of you know. Even if you're unfamiliar with the Bible, you've heard this story. So I'll just tell you about it quickly. There was a guy named David who became the king of Israel, but when he was first recognized, he was just a little young shepherd boy. And one day they were looking for a new king. And so when the prophet went out looking for the king, he goes to a man named Jesse's house, and he says, I've been told by God to come here and to find who'll be the next successor to Saul. And so he lines up 7 boys, and he looks at them, and they all look good. I mean, they look like the NFL, NBA type guys. And he was even saying, wow, what a selection. But in his heart, God said, no, I have not chosen these. And then the man turned, and the prophet says, do you have another son? He said, well, I've got one, and he's out in the field. He's kind of the least of my boys. He's ruddy. That means he's kind of earthy. He just likes being outdoors and can't stay indoors and hunts and fishes and all. And he said, he's tending sheep. And Samuel said, I'm not leaving until he comes. Would you bring him here? So they stayed. And when David walked in, came right in the presence of the prophet knew God spoke to him and said, this is him. And so Samuel laid his hands on him. And one of the things God revealed was, he said, man looks at the outside, like all those other brothers. But God looks at the inside. He looks at the heart. God sees what others can't see. And so he chose David that day to be the king. They anointed him with oil. He blessed him. But David, instead of running straight to the throne, David went right back out to the field and kept tending sheep. Many years later, what happened was David's out there, and his father says, David, I want you to take the day off, take this bread and cheese I have, and I want you to take it over to your brothers who are serving in the army. And if you'll go give these to your brother, he said, then you can find out also how they're doing. So he took his care package and he went to the army. Well, when he got there, they were engaged in a almost battle. They were lining up. And all of Israel was on one side. There was a valley in the middle. And then there was another mountain. And when David came up, he saw all of his brothers and all the army, and they were afraid. They were scared. They didn't know what to do. They had a problem. David was watching, and he found out what the problem was. On the other side, what had happened was the Philistines had a man, and this man was huge. I mean, he was nearly 10 feet tall. I mean, the NBA would have loved to have got this guy. And so his name is Goliath. Now, we've heard all our life about David and Goliath. And here's what happens, is that Goliath is standing there pounding his chest. And every day he comes out and he says, send a man to represent you and let him fight with us. And if he defeats me or kills me, we will become your slaves. All of our nation will submit to you. But if we beat him, then we will become your slaves. And so that was what he was challenging. Give me a fighter. And no one would do it. Even the king wouldn't do it. And David was listening, and David said, I'll go out there and kill this loudmouth blowhard. And he said, here. And David went out to fight him. And when David went to fight him, nobody believed in him. His brothers didn't believe in him. The king didn't believe in him. But David went out, and you know the ultimate story, the end of the story, when David, he began rock and roll. David rocked and Goliath rolled. That's one of them jokes, but I just had to get it out. But David at that moment what people don't realize, he was a slinger. And a slinger in those days could practice taking a sling and they'd put a rock in it, and they could swing that thing so fast, it'd go about 200 miles an hour. When they threw it, it was faster. It was like a 30-06, and they could hit anything. In fact, professional slingers would hit birds in flight at 50 yards, and that was how fast they were with just one rock. So David had been doing this before. He'd killed lions and bears, and he was not afraid of this giant. And you remember that David hit that giant with one rock between the eyes. He fell. David went up and took the sword from the giant, cut the giant's own head off, picked him up by the hair of his head, and walked back down the hill and said, here's your prize. And David that day became a household name. People from that day forward have been naming their children David. And that was where we see the guy who was in the shadows come to the light. He was a problem solver that day. So let me talk to you about that for just a moment. In fact, when David goes through that one act, it's kind of this, before the throne comes the test. You'll always be tested with problems. When God wants to make a king, God doesn't send you a crown, God sends a Goliath. And how you handle the problems will determine how far you can go in life. And so David's really ready to do that. In fact, the giant wasn't really meant to defeat David. The giant was meant to prepare David. David would have more problems down the road. He'd face other giant issues down the road. There's a basic law of leadership that I've always kind of assumed. I've never heard anybody teach it, but it's kind of been my recognition and my own observation. That is that the person who solves the problem usually gets to lead. I've often told people, say, well, nobody respects me at work. And my advice is solve a problem. If you'll solve a problem, they'll start looking to you in the room. They'll start realizing, hey, you brought something to the table. And so David was one of those that he solved the problem the army couldn't solve. He solved the problem the king couldn't solve. And so in that problem, I want to talk to you about how we handle it. How does a leader handle problems? Here's what they do, okay? Number one, leaders understand what problems can do. We're aware of what problems can do. Problems can intimidate you. They literally can put you in a place where you're paralyzed. Oh no, what do I do? How do I handle this? Goliath's 10 feet tall. For 40 days, every day he came out and taunted them. See the persistence of that? Some of you have a problem. You say it's not going away. Every day I have to face it. His spear, Goliath's spear weighed 25 pounds, so that's a big problem. And every day he got closer and closer and closer. He would step further from where he'd been the day prior. Problems have a tendency to intimidate us if we stop in that state. What my goal is for us to do a couple of things, is to learn to change your state. If you can change the state of your mind, you can handle a lot of problems. You know, it's kind of the issue of when somebody throws something, you can be reactive, or you can say, let me just change my state. And if I can change my state where I'm calm, where I think, where I don't respond or react quickly, changing my state alone will take care of a lot of things. And so you want to change the state of your mind. Now, problems intimidate. Problems can also enslave you. If you don't deal with the problem will one day be kind of the testimony of your life. Nobody will know you by solving a problem. They'll just say, yeah, they've got that problem. They're still in it. There are people we know that have had problems 10 years ago and they still got the same one. They never fixed it, never faced it, and that problem has enslaved them. That's what Goliath was saying. If you don't take us, we will make you our slaves. And so problems can do it. That's why I tell you, in every area, if it's your health or your work or your marriage or relationships, in every one of those, you have to say, there's a problem. It's not going to affect every area. I'll isolate it. But how do I handle that? I used to have to learn, even as a pastor, how to quickly assess what category to put it in. Otherwise, for example, one person will come up to me and say, and I've got a dozen right now, I'll call somebody today. They'll say, Pastor Bill, the doctor told me I have 5 months to live. And so he's got a problem. So while I'm talking to him, as soon as he walks off, somebody comes up and says, Pastor, we've been trying for 10 years to have a baby, and we're having our first child. I got to change my state quickly and celebrate. And then somebody tells me, well, this employee didn't do what they could have done, and now we've got more of a mess, and they're all mad at you for it. Now I got another problem. Then somebody else comes, let me tell you how good things are. And so by the end of the day, my mind has learned how to adjust to every single one of those. You have to learn to guard yourself lest you carry that problem in places it don't need to be. You ever had problems where you got a problem with somebody and you go to work and take it out on everybody? You know, you got a problem with one area and you just blast everybody. And so the key is to say, let me define and isolate the problem so that when I do want to deal with it, that at least I can get a hold of it and it doesn't take care of everything else. And so if you don't deal with your problem, it comes back. Here's the good thing about problems. Problems can develop you. It's through the problem that we grow. If you think it's about giant killing, it's not. This is really a story about the development of David. That's why I like in verse 12 of that scripture, it will say, now David. There's some of the problems there that now David. Here's what I know. I'll say it slow enough and clear enough that maybe it'll carry the weight. Every problem introduces a person to themselves. Every problem introduces a person to themselves. You can have 5 people with the same problem, and generally they'll respond differently. And the reason is because you don't know what you're made of till you have a problem. There was somebody recently, my wife and I were talking, and there was a particular lady that she just getting way out of hand in her marriage and everything else, and real self-righteous and highly religious. And Debbie said, Bill, I don't know what's going to happen to her. And I said, Debbie, she's never had a test. She's never faced a test. She condemns everybody that ever got out of a marriage or had an affair or was tempted. She condemns everybody in the world as if she's, holier than Mother Mary, but she's never faced a test. You don't know what you are till you're tested. You don't know, a friendship that can't be tested is a friendship that can't be fully trusted. A relationship that can't be tested is a relationship that can't be trusted. And so what you want to say is, I want to make sure that I can pass the test. So if you go through tests in life, problems are going to show us ourselves. Nothing shows us who we really are like a problem. When a problem comes, some people run. Some people are funny. They'll put their fingers in their ear and they don't want to hear it. Do you know people that just say, don't tell me about it? And all they want is good news. They just want sunshine and music. They don't tell me about the problem. And that's the lowest level of leadership. If all you want is people to bring you good news, the problem is it's a lid on your life. You can't go any further because all you want to hear is the good news. We have the old saying, I got news for you. I got good news and the bad news. And I always try to choose the bad news first. I say, give me the bad because I want to end on the good. And so I say, okay, give me the bad news. And then they'll tell me, okay, what's the good news? And the good news is something else. And I like that. But generally what you want to do is with a problem, you're going to have to learn that I can't just choose to hear the good news. I've got to be willing to hear the bad news. And the other thing along that line, and here's one of the things, leaders often pay a price in criticism. I've always said if you've never been criticized, you've never made a difference. If you don't want anybody to ever criticize you, I'm going to tell you how to do it, okay? If you never want to be criticized, here's the easiest way to do it. Just do nothing, say nothing, and be nothing, and everybody will leave you alone. But once you start moving the ball in your life, you're going to get friction. Once you start moving the ball in your life and you go forward, you're going to start realizing not everybody that said they was with me is with me. And so they pay a price. David's own brother said, why are you here? David said, well, I was bringing bread and cheese, but when I brought the bread and cheese, I heard that big loudmouth Goliath over there, and I thought, well, why go home leaving him there? I'll go take care of him. And David was willing to go fight, but his brothers were questioning his motives. Now, I know that's one of those things there's certain things that can bother people. They question my motives. Well, you know your motives, and God knows your motives, okay? And if you know them and God knows them, you're going to have to leave it. You don't have to explain your motives to God. He knows them. And if your motives are right, it doesn't matter if it's even perceived wrong. Make sure that from your own self, you check and introduce yourself. Now, what happens is when they question your motives, that's what they would do in David. They said, why are you here? Yeah, you want to be a big shot, and you just want to do that, and you want to watch us in the fight. And then here's another thought. People who reach giant levels in life, the people that you look at and you say, they succeeded, I promise you, if you could ask them, they have faced giant problems. You don't reach giant levels if you hadn't faced giant problems. And so I have a lot of times, people will call me, usually I'll get calls on a Sunday afternoon from pastors across the country. Brother Bill, could I just tell you this problem I'm going through? And it always reminds me, yeah, it's kind of something I went through at one time. I remember years ago, the sweetest thing, I used to have an old man, he died. He was an older pastor when I first came to the church. And the church had like 70 or 80 people in those days, and we were just trying to grow. And this older pastor would come to my office, and I only had me and one secretary, and he would always walk in. I could hear his voice. Is Brother Bill in there? And she'd say, yeah, he is. And he'd knock on the door, and I'd bring him in, and I'd welcome him. We were friends. I loved him until the day he died. And he'd been an older pastor, but I learned so much from him. I tell you what he would do it was a wonderful way of correcting me. He'd say, now, Brother Bill, when I was a pastor, he'd say, one time I was preaching, and I just got mad, and I just took it out on some people. And I would say, yeah, kind of like what I did yesterday, wasn't it? And he'd go, oh, no, I'm not talking about you, Brother Bill. I'm talking about me. And it seemed to me every time he came, he would let me know, a few times, when I was a pastor, here's a mistake I'd make. And it was always happened to be the same mistake I made the day before. And I'd say, yeah, I know. And then he'd always come, no, I'm talking about you. I'm talking about what I did. And he never had to really tell me, but I always walked away saying, thank you for the way he gave me that help. And so they'll call, and people call you sometime, but that's an honor because of this. They know you've been down that road. When you've solved problems, you'll get further, and people that reach giant levels killed some giants back there. And so those are things worth knowing. Also, keep this in mind. Your promised land is on the other side of giant land. You know, the blessings are on the other side. You got to face the problem to get there. You got to face that adversity, some of those conflicts. But here's the deal. The most common phrase in all of the Bible is Nehemiah 7:1. It says this, and it came to pass. Now, if you can remember that, and it came to pass, you know what it means? It didn't come to stay. You'll get through it, okay? I know too many people that when a problem came, they reacted or overreacted in that moment instead of realizing this too shall pass. You won't always feel the same. You'll look back one day and say, man, I came so close to really losing it all or going through a difficult time. I just thank God I hung on in there until I got past it. I don't know about you. Somebody asked me today, they said, well, you know, when you were coming up, you dated a lot. And then I did. And they said, did you ever get broke up with? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you got broke up with, maybe you're not doing it right. Sure. Yeah. Did you think the first time you ever got broke up with that you wouldn't live to see tomorrow? You know, oh, how terrible, how bad. And then you go back to that high school reunion and you say, thank God that didn't last, you know. And so that's kind of, you know, I remember when Debbie and I first got married. When we got married, Debbie was saying, you know, she'd say, Bill, I just don't want the Lord to come back before we get married. I'm so afraid Jesus is coming back before we get married. And so we got married. 2 weeks later, she said, Lord, you can come back now. It's okay. And so you will get through it, okay? You will get through it. Whatever you're facing today, don't overreact. Don't crack all your eggs. Stop and think and weigh it and realize if I go through it one day, I'll be on the other side of it, and I can look back and say, I've learned some things. I've got some experience now. You develop the maturity by having gone through that. The second thing I know is this. Leaders know which problems to face. Now, David knew I got one problem to face, and he went out to do that. He went for that one problem that was kill the giant, would take care of it. Some people see a giant problem in every small incident. I mean, if it's inconvenient, oh, it's the worst problem. I've always said, don't think of it as it's the worst problem. Maybe you were supposed to be caught by that red light because something ahead was a trouble for you. Maybe if you can go through life just holding loosely, some things happen, and most things, I believe, happen for a reason, and so you can't control everything. And so don't let the petty things become problems. Everybody has in their life 2 buckets in your hand at least. Now, what you have in that bucket could be anything. I always say there's gas in one and water in the other. If there's a problem and you pour gas on it, it gets worse. If there's a problem and you pour water on it, it gets better. I know a lot of people that can throw water on a problem, and I see a lot of wives do that with their husbands. Husband's starting to get all bent out of shape, and she'll just toss the water. No, honey, it's not that bad, and we're okay. I'll tell you, your pastor's wife, Carrie is the best. I think Carrie's got 2 buckets of water. She don't say nothing. She won't say nothing bad about anybody. I mean, she's just the most loving, caring, and it's a problem, and she carries the problem of MS. One time I drove by a gas station, and she was standing there, and I went on to where I was at. I came back 1 hour later. She's still standing there. So I pulled in, and I called her Care Bear. I said, Care Bear, what? You got a problem? And she said, I can't get my gas cap off. Now, what people don't know is because of her MS, sometimes she can't work with her hands like she could. So for 1 hour, she's standing there trying to get her gas cap off. My heart broke. She's got an autistic son. She's got all those things. But if you talk to her right now, you know what she'll say? How are you doing? What's going on with you? And she never will tell those. You may not know those things if I didn't tell you, but she handles the problem with she's got 2 buckets of water. Now, we also know there are people that got 2 buckets of gas, you know. You got a problem, man. It really is a problem when they walk out. And so leaders know which problems to handle. And by the way, the people that can't handle a small problem, you know how we do. We think, what would they do if they ever got a big one? I mean, if this one rocks their world, they could never go through what some of you have been through. So be careful about getting weighed down by every cause, every issue, exerting energy that doesn't matter. You know, I think one of the things that gets us most on that, it used to be religion. Now what has surpassed it is politics. I've never seen that so as divisive as politics. If you sit down and talk to one another, you'll find out we all want the same thing. We all want a good opportunity. We all want health. We all want to love. We want to raise our kids in a good environment. But you see these people standing on the street corners screaming and yelling. Most of them don't even know what they're yelling about. But when you work up your blood pressure that much, you can try it with anybody. Go to a pack of dogs today and just start getting your energy up, and they'll get it up too. And so it's very important that we say, I'm not going to make more of the problem than I should. David's brothers now saw that. David's basically handling. Now, the third thing I'll tell you is this. Leaders have a strategy for solving problems. Here's the strategy. Number one, rise up. The Bible says that David rose up to meet him. That is, when David saw the problem, David didn't pretend it didn't exist. He didn't make an excuse. David didn't say, hey, that's not my problem. I'm not in the army. I'm bringing bread and cheese, and I'm going back to the sheep. David didn't make an excuse. David said, what's he doing over there? And they said, he's trying to intimidate our army and conquer us. And David said, well, while I'm here, let me go fight him. And you rise up. When a problem comes, you can shrink or you can stretch. And when the problem comes to your life, it's very important you just say, well, let me just face with it. And you don't have to take on everybody's problems. I was known for this. When I was a pastor, somebody would come see me in counseling. I remember one time there was a drill sergeant. He's in heaven today. His name was Charlie Jones. Charlie been a drill sergeant out here at Fort Benning for, I guess, 30 years or so. And Charlie was hardcore. And if Charlie didn't like you, you knew he didn't like you. If he liked you, he'd hug you and break your bones. And Charlie and I sometimes would have a little head-butting contest. One day I remember he came to see me, and he opened up my door in the office, and I was studying something. He walked in. Here was Charlie's word. Bill, we got a problem. And you know what I said? I said, Charlie, we don't have a problem. You have a problem. I didn't have a problem when I walked in this morning. I'm not going to have a problem when I leave. If I can help you with your problem, then let's talk. And Charlie told me, nobody ever talked to me that way. Well, maybe your lieutenant or colonel or captain should have. Okay? Not everybody's problem is your problem. When they say, we got a problem, stop and say, do we really have a problem, or is that their problem? Because I don't want their problem dropped on me and me have to take care of their problem for the next week or so. And so David did the right thing. There's a problem, you rise up, you go to it. He ran to it, it said. And so you just say, if you got a problem with somebody, call them and ask them, so-and-so, here's what I heard, or here's what I know. Do we have a problem? Ask them that. That's the easiest way to know. And if you ask them, now it's on them. And so it takes it off of you. The second thing is this. When you have a problem, think about this so you don't get overwhelmed. I call it, the first one we said rise up. The second one is remember. Just remember it's not your first rodeo, okay? You've had problems before. You'll have them again. And so what you do is you remember, I've had other problems. See, David was in a field at times, and he would hear his sheep screaming, and he'd look out, and there was a lion there. When Saul came to David, he said, how are you going to fight him? You're just a kid, and he's a man of war since birth. And he said, look, King, when I was a child, he said, when I'd be out in the field, as a young man, if a lion came or a bear came, he said, I rose up and I killed him. And so David's saying, I remember that I had problems in the past, and guess what? I'm still standing. I'm still here. I made it through. And the greatest way to get through some of your problems is to say, I've been there before. I don't want to go down that road, but I've been there before. And I survived that, and I'll survive this too. And you don't make it bigger than it is. And so David quickly just says, I remember. And that's what he said. When I was tending sheep or bear, he said, I'd go out and kill them. And David said, so that giant on the hillside, I didn't come here to fight today. I came to feed. But if I have to leave killing that man, okay, I'll do that too. And that's what David's doing. He's basically in control of himself, his emotions, his mentality, and he's in control really of the moment. And so remember, you've faced problems before and you've survived. And remember this, God was with you. God was with you. And if God was with you, it's really not a problem. It may draw you closer to God. It may make you remember how good God is. And so remember this, it's not about making the problem bigger. It's about saying, God's entrusting me with this situation, and how do I get through it? And if I get through it, I'm just going to remember I got through it last time by my faith in God. The third thing I'd say, the final thing, is this. We said that rise up and remember. And the third one is risk. Leaders who handle problems understand there's always a risk. See, it'd be risky for a boy barely out of his teens to face a well-trained killer like Goliath with a slingshot. But David knew, I did it with a bear. I did it with a lion. See, you don't have to be bigger than your enemy, by the way. You just have to know where to hit, okay? You don't have to be bigger. You just have to say, okay, I'm going to use my target. And that's what David did. David said it's not a matter of the size, it's a matter of the skill. And here's what you know, the real problem was not Goliath. Sure, he was a big physical problem. The real giant was not Goliath. The real giant was a little boy with a big faith and no fear. That was the real giant that day. If you want to know which one of that day, though everybody bet against him, the one that really rose up and became the household name and saved a nation was a little boy who remembered God's always been with me. He always will be. He's never left me, will never forsake me. I remember there was a boy one time came home from seminary, and he wanted to impress his grandmother. He said, Grandmother, I've been learning the Greek language. And did you know in the book of Hebrews where it says, I will never leave thee nor forsake thee? That word never doesn't mean just never leave you. It means it with a thrice-fold emphasis. It means I will never leave thee or forsake thee. And he said, isn't that good, Grandma? And she looked at him and said, well, God may have to say it 3 times to you seminary boys, but he ain't got to say it but once for me, and I'll believe him. What is, he took his stand on what God said, so you trust him. Here's what I know is this, is what David had on the inside was greater than what Goliath had on the outside. And know this, winners are not people with no problems. Winners are people who conquer, who face their problems. And so here's the reminder for you as I step away. If there's any unresolved issues in your life, anything that needs to be solved, if there's any problems that are preventing your progress, do like David, be a leader. Face it, fix it, and grow through it. Thanks so much for being here today. I pray God blesses you well, and I'm grateful that you came to Cascade.
All right. I don't know about you guys, but I took a lot away from that. One of my favorite things he said was about how problems can develop you. I don't know about you, but I'm ready to walk out of these doors and rise up to those problems. I know you are too, but what did you learn today? What did you take away? What was that moment for you that you said, man, that's exactly the wisdom I've been praying for and looking for? I encourage you, go ahead, go on Instagram, make a post, tag BP Leadership. You never know, that wisdom may help somebody else, and that insight is going to enter you into a drawing that could possibly win you some merch. So feel free to go ahead and do that as well. And speaking of a drawing, I know as you guys came in today, you picked up a raffle ticket. And so go ahead and pull those little puppies out right now, because we're going to do a drawing for a $50 Visa gift card, just a small way that we can say thanks for being here today. Go ahead and check out those cards and see if you match number 133762. Anybody here in the room, where you at? Hey, we got a lucky winner right over here. Congratulations. Congratulations to you. If you'll just stop by that merch table in the lobby there before you leave, we'll get that prize to you. But thank you guys so much for joining us today. Would you give it up for Mr. Bill one more time in that fantastic lesson? Amen to that. And listen, we hope you guys will join us on Thursday, June the 5th, right here for our next event next month. But thank you guys so much for being here. We love you, and have a great rest of your day.